Hello and welcome to Reporters. I'm Mark Owen. In this edition, the hardline rule in El Salvador. A state of emergency declared in March over widespread gang violence is still in place. It's raised alarm across human rights groups due to over 57,000 arrests and arbitrary detentions. The focus falls on El Salvador's president and his almost cult-like status. Our reporter Laurence Cuvillier has the story. Laurence, great to see you. Tell us more about this man, Nayib Bukele.
Well, he's young, only 41 years old, so he was only a child when the peace was signed in 1992 after a 12-year-long civil war. And so as a president, he delivered a fresh message on the political stage, a message saying he would overcome the divisions resulting from the armed conflict and which are still marking the Salvadorian political landscape. That said, behind his modern, almost hipster style, he orchestrated a concentration of power in his own hands using authoritarian methods, which is why he's been called the coolest dictator in the world. He's very controversial, very popular in his country, but also criticized for endangering democracy in El Salvador.
Laurence, thank you. Let's take a look then at the report by Laurence Cuvillier and Matthieu Comin in El Salvador.
9 p.m. in San Salvador, in front of El Penalito, or the Little Prison. These families are waiting the release of their loved ones. Some of them haven't left this sidewalk for several weeks. They hang on the lips of the officer who announces a few names every evening. A few moments later, that evening, 2 men were released. It's a sign of hope that other families are holding on to.
It's very moving. We know that from one day to the next, this could happen to us as well.
It's sad for us. We see what's happening here, but we have no news of our children who are on the other side.
All of these people asked us to hide their faces out of fear of reprisal. In El Salvador right now, more than 1 out of every 100 people is behind bars. Tomasa and her husband wanted to testify openly.
He has been working since he was 18 years old. This was his uniform.
Their son worked for a telecommunications agency. He was arrested on June the 6th while installing cables with his crew. His record was clean.
The lawyer simply told us that we had to wait. The first hearing has already taken place. He will spend 6 months in preventative detention while they conduct their investigation.
However, the case-by-case approach no longer exists. At Joel's first appearance, 162 cases were being reviewed.
Since the 6th of June, we still have no idea why he was detained, nor what the charges are against him. We imagine it's because of his tattoos.
Tattoos, a reason to be charged in El Salvador. Since the end of the civil war in 1992, a new evil has taken hold of the country, the Maras, ultra-violent gangs that terrorize the population. 2 large Maras, the MS and the 18, are fighting for control of the neighborhoods. They wear their allegiance to these groups, even on their faces. The Maras kidnapped Joel's younger sister, Ketty, in 2016. She's been missing ever since, and the investigation has never moved forward. Joel, however, only sported artsy tattoos.
He had tattooed his mother's name on his forearm, and this is a palm tree, where he depicted himself holding his children by the hand. A lot of people say, it's great what the president is doing, but that's because they haven't experienced it.
54,000 inmates in 6 months, crammed into already overcrowded prisons. The families have no right to visit, but they have to ensure the provision of white clothes, toilet paper, food, and even cleaning products.
But the worst thing is not knowing how he is. It's terrible. As a mother, I'm afraid I'm going to go through what many others have gone through in the last few months. When they came to try to get news, they were told that their sons were dead, and they were returned in body bags.
Human rights groups are caught in a flood of complaints about arbitrary detentions or unexplained deaths in prisons.
Hello, Mrs. Luz. My name is Mario Soto. I'm a lawyer and notary. How old was Miguel Angel?
He was going to be 37. They arrested him on April the 6th.
The 6th of April, 2022. What time did they take him?
At 4 in the afternoon.
His profession?
He was a construction worker. Even when he didn't have a job, he would bring me some money, $5 or $10. He would buy me some coffee, soap, dishwashing liquid.
He was a good son to you.
He had blood pressure problems. His wife said that when they arrested him, he instantly started to feel very bad.
Didn't they give you any information at the detention center?
No, they told us that it was forbidden, that by order of the president they couldn't say anything about what was going on inside. The following week I went back to the prison. I didn't go to work. I just needed to be close to him. But he was already gone.
He was no longer in that prison.
No, he was already in the morgue.
So he died on the 4th of May, and you were notified on the 15th of May. Almost 11 days passed before you were informed, and it was not the prison, nor the morgue that called you, but the funeral home.
Yes.
Like Luz's son, dozens of detainees have died in unexplained circumstances and without medical care. President Nayib Bukele has made the hatred of these prisoners a key part of his popularity.
All cells will be locked 24/7. No one will even go out into the yard. They will not see the light of day.
In the last 5 years, crime has fallen considerably, but there are still an estimated 70,000 gang members in the country. A tattoo of the letters MS or the number 18, like the one on this young man, is the promise of a long prison sentence.
We are going to take him to the police station in Soyapango. We will consult our files to see if he is registered as an active gang member. It is possible that he will be taken into custody on charges of gang activity.
We respect the authority, the government. We bless the government. You're on the right path, and we remain obedient to God. This is my son. He is an employee of the Evangelical Apostolic Church, like me.
Have they just arrested your son?
I can't tell you. God has the final say.
The state of emergency that has been in effect since the end of March allows the police not to inform suspects of the reason for their arrest.
The truth is, what just happened is the will of God.
Did you know your son was a gang member?
He was, for a few years, but not anymore. He's in God's hands now.
Mere suspicions, reports from a neighbour. First they arrest, then they investigate.
It's this house. Get out. Hands behind your head.
You can tell he drinks. It's full of bottles here. What's his real job?
But I just explained to you.
Look at all this. Who paid for it?
As I said, he just lost his job. But he was working honestly.
And everything here I bought with money sent to me by my daughter's father.
Do you have relatives, members of gangs?
No, as I told you.
Oh, and your brother, who was arrested.
But he's not in a gang.
But he was arrested under the emergency law.
Yes, but...
Okay, so?
Yes, he was arrested, but not for being in a gang.
While searching the phone of the young man's wife, the policeman finds an incriminating photo.
Well, it's just a symbol. Is it wrong to do that?
The policeman will not show it to us, but he says that it pictures a distinctive hand signal of the Maras. The two people are finally arrested. A huge cleanup that relieves the vast majority of Salvadorians, but which takes with it everything in its path. Ernesto is one of the 15,000 civil servants recently fired. He spent the first 2 months of the state of emergency in the police.
Era una cacería a lo que cayera, ¿verdad?
We were asked to catch everything that moved. We were given quotas for arrests, from the smallest neighborhood police station to the largest police units. We all had targets to meet.
When was it? Last Wednesday? We arrested 1,090 gang members in one day. And now they are on the run. They're hiding like rats. I don't want to offend the rats, but literally, they're going to hide in holes.
At first, this was seen as a good thing, because before, the police were tied hand and foot to take effective action against the Maras. But we soon saw that things were going badly. We had to arrest anyone to achieve our goal. And that's when the injustice began. We arrested a lot of people who had nothing to do with the gangs. And of course, the Maras did everything they could to flee, to take refuge in the countryside, to leave the country.
Que pobrecitos. Yeah, but the poor, eh? We are violating human rights? That's what the NGOs, the international crime organizations, say. They say they are defending human rights. It's a load of crap. What family in our country doesn't have a scary story to tell about what the gangs did to them?
Conocer a esta gente bella, a ver qué nos cuenta, a ver qué nos trae. Así que vamos a iniciar por acá. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo estamos?
The youth movement of Nuevas Ideas, the party of President Nayib Bukele, hold a meeting.
President Bukele is an example for all young Salvadorans. Many young leaders are inspired by his political vision. The youngest president in Latin America, who'll continue to make history in 2024.
2024. The year of the next presidential election. The Salvadorian constitution formally prohibits the renewal of terms, but Nayib Bukele has decided to ignore it.
We've seen a lot of people living in fear, people who are afraid to speak out because they're afraid the police will come and arrest them for criticizing the government. What do you think?
You mean currently?
Yes, many people are afraid to speak out because they're afraid of arbitrary detentions.
Sorry, but right now? No.
There have been more than 3,000 complaints of arbitrary detentions. More than 80 detainees have died in disturbing circumstances. There are many human rights violations since the beginning of the state of emergency.
Our president was very clear in his speech at the United Nations. We are a free and sovereign state, and any negative comment coming from another country or from a foreign institution seems really inappropriate to me.
A speech aligned with that of a self-assured president. The state of emergency was designed to respond to a security crisis, but after 6 months, it has become permanent. For some, it frees the country from gangs. For others, it exposes it to another kind of violence, that of the government's authoritarian abuses.
Our reporter Laurence Cuvillier is still here. Laurence, thank you so much for that report. What an insight into El Salvador. Now, tell us, Bukele, always critical of NGOs, it seems, and very critical of the international community and its view of El Salvador. Why is he so bellicose?
Well, that's been his narrative for months. Nayib Bukele wants to defend by all means a vulnerable population against the Maras. The Salvadorans are indeed exhausted by decades of murders, kidnappings, extortion. While he pretends the UN, NGOs, and human rights associations' purpose is only to defend terrorists. So that's why activists and journalists are being criminalized in El Salvador right now. I suggest we listen to his own words.
A few days ago, the General Direction of Prisons released inmates so they could proceed with the destruction of graves of gang members. People welcomed this initiative, here and abroad, in other countries. And of course, above all, Salvadorans. But immediately, international organizations and defenders of human rights stepped up to criticize, asking why we were violating the rights of dead gang members and the rights of their families, who come and bring flowers to the graves to pay respect. So let's be clear. It's not forbidden for gang members to have graves. What is forbidden is for people to write the names of gangs like Mara Salvatrucha or Barrio 18 on those graves. Simply because in Salvador, since the law criminalizing gangs was approved, these symbols are forbidden.
A partir de la aprobación de la ley de proscripción de pandillas, están prohibidos esos símbolos.
So he pretends that he will save El Salvador from decades of gang-related crime, but we have to bear in mind that he had in the past negotiated with them and established a pact with the Mara Salvatrucha, the most powerful gang in the country, a pact which was aimed at lowering homicides in exchange for favors for imprisoned gang members. The breach of this pact is what sparked an outburst of violence on March 26, and this led to the state of exception, which is still in effect today.
Laurence, thank you very much indeed, and thanks to you and Matthieu Comin for that report. You can, of course, see it again on our website, france24.com. This is Reporters on France 24. Thank you for watching. Stay with us. Stay safe.